Time to take a look at Harry the Hammer's impact on the Tomb Kings matchup. Because the Tomb Kings are more of a traditional kind of combined arms faction, they should be less vulnerable than, say, the Vampire Counts, because the Vampire Counts tend to fight in more of a blob style with their melee only and, multiple blob healing effects and so forth. Although, traditionally, Tomb Kings have struggled a bit against foot characters. Harald is very expensive, and he does have a decent amount of HP, but not a ton at the end of the day. Could definitely be worked down by some Spirit Leech, and in this replay today from Boogelicious, he's going to be taking the Warriors of Chaos up against the Tomb Kings, and he's got a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Fire up in the air on a Manticore. Interesting choice. Lord of Fire is always going to be good here. Some Marauder Horsemen, Throwing Axes, and Tactical Reserve in the back. Got one Chosen Halberd here with two Chaos Warriors of Khorne, dual weapons, front line of some regular Chaos Warriors, Sword and Shield, with some Marauders out on the flanks. And then already some Warhounds making a forward attack here. As for the Tomb Kings, Cetra going to be leading the way. We've got a Necrotect and some Nehekar Warriors mixed with Skeleton Spearmen as the front line. Looks like Chosen of the Gods, Regiment of Renowned Ushabti, plenty of Skeleton Horsemen in a nice mobile attack force with the Sphinx of Usek. So, let's get things rolling. Yeah, like I said, Harald, because of the combined arms nature of Tomb Kings, they're going to be a little bit less vulnerable, although, yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see kind of how he performs. I mean, Tomb Kings don't have a lot of great armor-piercing anti-infantry tools for sniping characters, especially. Most reliable thing would be like Spirit Leech from Ark in the Black, for example, although that can be counteracted by Warriors of Chaos' own healing. Of course, again, there wasn't any brought here, but Chaos Warriors definitely going to take some damage on the approach. Harald, of course, is a foot character, which generally limits him to a certain degree, and his Undead removal attribute also has a relatively small area of effect. So those two sort of factors working together does mean that he'll not be able to rout off a lot of the Tomb King's units at the same time, right? Anyway, yeah, nice big line engagement, nice burning head pop in the front line there as well. We're going to watch these Warriors of Khorne as they get in here and start to cut up skeletons. King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion even, that ROR there. And then the nice black-clad Chaos Warriors, Chosen advancing in here as well. Cetra's up in this front line, having a good time. In the back, the Chaos Sorcerer Lord drops on Chosen of the Gods. They're going to get a little bit of anti-large with that. Actually, no overcast on the Incantation of Cursed Blades, just extra weapon strength. Be able to hold their own in a surround for the time being. Meanwhile, Harald's helping to route these units out on this flank, but his slow speed is definitely coming in to play as a factor here. Only 33 speed means the Necro Sphinx can easily just walk in the other direction, although it did just side charge into the Chosen there, which might not have been the best target. Honestly, in this build, there's not a lot of great targets for the Sphinx of Usek other than the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, which it looks like it is moving back to engage. Another Burning Head in the front line. Gonna come in and do some nice damage as the Sphinx charges. That Manticore Lord doesn't have a whole lot of HP, so it's definitely going to take some serious damage, but Burning Head is always a good time for burning through Tomb King's front line, especially those Kepler Guard. Must have missed them earlier, but quite an expensive unit. The Manticore Lord does manage to escape. It looks like the Sphinx actually pushed him out of the surround of the Chosen of the Gods there. Very lucky for him that he survives, but Harald, meanwhile, is just helping to rout off continuously the units on the Tomb King's right flank. The Nehekar Warriors, Scorpion Legion now suffering the effects of true terror that is Harald. Hammerstorm. Here comes Cetra in here as well, diving in for a little bit of a risky biscuit, but he does get that nice flash AoE damage there to get a little burst on the Khorne Warriors, not to mention Skeleton Horsemen move in to screen Harald away. And, I mean, Cetra on his chariot maybe would be even better, but could potentially cycle charge Harald to death as long as he has enough support units, especially if it's like him and the Sphinx in the late game. Potentially could actually get him down. But as it is right now, seems like the Tomb Kings are just focusing on killing the rest of the army. We've got Skeleton Horsemen chasing these routing Marauder Horsemen here in the back. Despite the burning heads, the Kepler Guard managed to survive and actually trade pretty well. Rout off those Warriors of Khorne there, and there's just a few shielded warriors in the center, along with these Warriors of Khorne over here. The Chosen also, of course, still quite healthy, and just being annoying, pushing into the back line. Of course, with good micro, these Chosen of the Gods will be able to get away no problem, but even a momentary slip-up, Chosen can get in there. Oh, they're both Chosen. Actually, just right now realize that. Took me this long. Anyway, yeah, getting a little bit of a duel here between Cetra and Harald. A couple of Khorne warriors also involved in the fight here, but yeah. Although Harald is not Khorne specific, I guess. Definitely fits with the Khorne aesthetic very well with his red armor, so cool to see him backed up by those Khorne warriors. But Cetra, again, going to take advantage of his mobility and just move away from Harald there. Try and unify with the Sphinx. They've managed to break these two Chaos Warriors here. Summon Shabti as well, helping to aid on that front. And the Fire Sorcerer's just kind of having to hang back right now, preferably out of range of the Chosen of the Gods, which got dragged down by the Chosen of the other gods here. And should be crumbled enough that they will be eliminated, but we'll see. Another nice Burning Head here should help finish off the Kepler Guard. And the Sphinx of Usek charges in again to Chosen, which is definitely not the most ideal circumstance, but the Tomb Kings don't have a lot with the Chosen of the Gods going down to kill the Chosen of the other gods here. So, we'll see. Definitely Balance of Power is looking okay. Incantation of Physical Resistance, basically, and the Restore from the Necrotect, who is also grinding down some Chaos Warriors over there. Probably got some value over time that I haven't really paid attention to. Just a little bit, but Manticore Lord going to make a risky dive once again, try and get in combat. Here comes Harald as well. I try and charge into the Sphinx. Will Cetra actually go down here? Yeah, he actually gets terrified away. Happens to be within the area of effect when he gets hit by that Manticore charge. And Cetra may not serve, but he does rout when he comes across Harald. And let's see here if he can actually manage to rout the Sphinx of Usek. Now, it does get the Undead tag removed, but it still counts as Construct. So I actually think that the Tomb Kings might be in a decent place in that the Construct units don't appear to be affected by this ability at all. It's actually pretty interesting, and I noticed that the first time I watched this replay. I was like, oh yeah, because they're actually not technically undead. They're technically constructs, which is a different tag. So that is pretty interesting to see. It does mean that I think actually Tomb Kings probably out of all the undead, despite generally struggling against Foot Lords, probably have the best chance and the best kind of army composition to combat somebody like Harald. Definitely interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to watching this matchup more in the future. It is a matchup I think that's just generally been Wars of Chaos favored over the years because of Lore of Fire and some other various aspects, but it's definitely interesting. Tomb King's not going quietly to that good night here. But does give me the idea that maybe like double War Sphinx actually could take out Harald no problem, 2v1, especially with Necrotect support. Be interesting for sure, especially if you had, like, let's say Arcan, Necrotect, and 2 War Sphinxes. Seems like a pretty decent setup. War Sphinxes are just awesome in general. But anyway, let's fast forward a little bit here as Harald makes his way out into the center and challenges the Sphinx of Usek once again. And it does seem like it's going to come down to pretty much just Harald with a handful of warriors. I guess those Chosen Halberds are also making a pretty big difference here as well. We have one health unit of Nehekar warriors that I've kind of been neglecting. They've just been on a rampage here. They actually haven't got that much value, but have been at least out on the flank fighting. Some units, a little bit of a swing and a miss there on that Burning Head, but finally we're going to get the last engagement. I love Harald just charging in like a true Chad against the Necro Sphinx, gets decked immediately and just falls down. Gets back up, and the Sphinx is going to charge then into the Chosen. Nehekar Warrior is also going to get a charge here into the Chosen. But Harald, of course, can rout them off and gets that big AoE strike there. That's going to immediately terrify them away. And we're left with just the Sphinx of Usek. So, yeah, definitely learned a lot today. It was interesting to see this matchup, and realizing now that the constructs are not affected by Harald does sort of impact my idea of how much he has an impact on this matchup. It seems like this is, again, probably the matchup that's least affected. It was already, in my opinion, somewhat in Warriors of Chaos' favor. Maybe Harald makes it slightly more so, but not necessarily unwinnable for Tomb Kings, especially if you have the right army composition set up and you play your cards right. Yeah, it's maybe one... I'd probably still auto-include him as Warriors of Chaos most of the time, but maybe not. It's the one Undead matchup where there's an argument to be made that maybe Tomb Kings actually have the right counters to deal with him. We'll see as this patch rolls on. Regardless, though, Chosen, Warriors of Chaos, just in general, very good here. The Chosen themselves, almost 3,000 damage value. One of the Khorne Warriors, 227 kills, 1620 on value. Absolutely awesome. The regular Chaos Warriors also decent. Reliable mainline infantry here. Trade well in some like Tomb Guards for the same cost. Love to see the value on the Fire Mage as well. Pretty cheap up on the Manticore, so it's great value there. Then Harald himself doesn't get that much damage actually this time, but definitely tactically routing off Tomb King's units is always nice. We see generally the Nekaro Warriors don't really perform that well. Chosen of the Gods who shot to Great Bows did a great job, but yeah, the Sphinx of Usek obviously didn't have a lot of great targets to fight here. Hindsight 2020 would have been definitely better to have anti-infantry monsters, specifically the War Sphinx, I think. But it's definitely an interesting one. You know, just going into this matchup in the future, I'd probably, like I said, start with the base of Arcan for Spirit Leech. And then... yeah, so go Arcan for Spirit Leech, and definitely want to kit him down. Probably take him on horseback, but then just take Spirit Leech, and maybe you take Fate of Yuna also to, like, nuke a Chosen if you need to, or Purple Sun if you want to have more fun. Fate of Yuna is going to be a little bit more reliable, but definitely more boring. And then these others, you definitely want to have the Summon, obviously, and then, yeah, Liber Noctis is also pretty good, Life Leeching. If you have the funds, I mean, you can kind of kit him up and down as much as you want, depending on how much you want to bring, but then these two War Sphinxes, then, for some anti-infantry, they'll work great against the Chaos Warriors. They'll work great against, especially 2v1, I would imagine, against Harald. And then, with them, maybe grab 1 or 2 Necrotechs with the Dam Braces of the Sun on at least one, and definitely Restore on both. Something like this. These guys also, I mean, they do have anti-infantry. In a pinch, they can get in as an extra single entity on that fight. Oop. This one. This is how we need to do it. So that still leaves you a pretty decent amount. I mean, that is quite expensive in terms of single entity spend, but it still leaves you enough that you can come in here and still fill out like your Chosen of the Gods, try and get some Skeleton Spears, maybe a couple of Skeleton Horsemen. Gets a little bit odd, but it does restrict a little bit in terms of what you can bring, but you can definitely still go fairly wide around it. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, though. If you had experience in this matchup playing against Harald or with Harald against the Tomb Kings, let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.